Hey guys, welcome back to Code Chunks. Today I'm going to be walking you through some of my favorite VS Code extensions and how to use them. Alrighty, so I have VS Code open right here. Everything is kind of closed. And so if you're new to VS Code, the way to access your extensions is by going to the navigation right here on the left-hand side, and you go to this icon, which is called extensions right here, and you click on that. And this is where you can search for extensions or see your enabled and disabled extensions as well. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first extension I'm going to be showing you is called AutoCloseTag. So whenever you're writing HTML or XML, it gets kind of tedious to write your closing tags for your div or your p tag or whatever. And so this just automates that for you. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll show you real quick. So let me just go to an example file. Okay. And let me just write a div, for example, right? So I just close it, and it automatically generates this closing tag for me right here. And that just makes it easy instead of having to manually write out /div and then close it or whatever. The next extension is called bracket pair colorizer. Now, this isn't really necessary or needed, but it just makes it easier to read code, at least for myself. Now, I'll show you what that does. So any bracket that you have, so parentheses or curly braces or a square bracket, it'll colorize that for you. And so, right now it doesn't seem that big of a deal, but once you start nesting a lot of them, so this is just React and some JSX syntax. If you're not familiar with it, don't worry. But this applies to anything that you write in your VS Code. And so here, this is just a arrow function right here, anonymous arrow function. And maybe I want to return something and I want to do something else in here. Maybe, obviously, never do this. This is really bad code, but this is just to emphasize, the issue that you'll encounter and what this does. And so, test whatever. Okay. So here you can see that it just colorizes the brackets for you. So it just makes it easier to distinguish between, which bracket goes where. Um, if you're not so good with the highlighting, or if you just want to look at it real quick at a glance. So that's what that does. Okay, so the next extension is called Code Spell Checker, and so I'm pretty sure you can figure out what that does. But I sometimes make some spelling mistakes while I'm writing some code, and this will just let you know that you misspelled a word. And so let me just make an example real quick, just like this, and then obviously that's not a word, right? And here you'll see that it'll add some squiggly lines under the text. And if you hover over, it'll say that it's an unknown word. That's that. Pretty self-explanatory, straightforward. Alrighty, so this next extension is called Gitlin. So it's Git supercharged. And what does that mean? So VS Code comes with some Git functionality, I guess you could say, built in. This just adds some stuff on top of that, if you will. It makes it nicer to interact with the files in your VS Code, especially if it's on a project or repo that has multiple contributors. So what does that look like? So I'm just open up a file real quick, and this repo is something I pulled from GitHub by Kent Dodds, pretty popular developer if you don't know who he is. So what GitLens is doing right now is showing me that Kent Dodds worked on this 2 years ago, last worked on this 2 years ago rather, and there's two authors for this file. And if I click on a line, show me that he wrote this line 2 years ago, and the commit message was just add routing. Now, if I hover over, it'll show me Kent's little avatar from GitHub, the exact date and time that, date and time that this line was written, along with the message, the commit number, the changes, and all that good stuff. And it makes it a lot easier to get blame, if you will, if something broke and you want to figure out who wrote it, or if you want to figure out who wrote a specific line, just to get an understanding of how that functionality works. Now you can also go to the little GitLens tab right here in the navigation, and here you can see that I added a file, and if I click on that, show me that obviously I'm making changes, but this is a new file, so it'll show me that it's a new file. There's an uncommitted change, and then I can go to line history as well. So if I go to a file real quick, all right, look, so I can see that for this commit, all this stuff was added. Um, I can look at the file history as well of what was done. So this is when the file was created, and this was when this person made these changes and what changes they made. I can go to line history. It just makes it really easy to kind of dive down into the Git history of a specific file or even a specific line. Okay, so the next extension is called Highlight Matching Tag. Now, what this does is that it highlights the matching HTML, XML tag, but it also does it for brackets, I guess, and curly braces as well. So let me just show you how that works real quick. So if I just have a div, let's do that. If I highlight it or select it, it also highlights the matching div or closing tag as well. And I can also highlight this little parentheses and I'll highlight the matching parentheses as well. Does it the same thing for curly braces and pretty self-explanatory, but it makes your life a lot easier, especially when you have, nested uh, tags or curly braces or parentheses. Alrighty, so the next extension is called Indent Rainbow. Now, you can kind of figure out what that does from the name, but it basically just colors the indents in your file, so it makes it easier to kind of distinguish or see visually which lines are indented to which extent, I guess. So I'll show you that real quick. So here you can kind of already see it working, but let me just add a couple more lines um, here. Maybe you want to add a section tag. All right, so here you can see, you get the idea that it's coloring each indent, so it just makes it easier to see which lines are indented to which level. So this level has its own color, this color has level has its own color, etc. Now I'll cycle through the colors, obviously, because there's only a set amount of colors that the extension has, but you can customize that if you want. But this is basically it. Okay, so JavaScript code snippets is a pretty handy, pretty nifty extension. Now, there's a couple of commands that it comes with, but the idea behind it is that there's certain things in JavaScript, at least, that you'll be writing over and over again. And so this just provides you some quick code commands, I guess, if you will, that will automatically write those. And there's a whole list of them down here, but I'll just show you one real quick. Now, you'll often see in JavaScript, I guess especially in newer JavaScript, ES6, is that you'll be writing import statements a whole lot. And so instead of having to write import and then React from React, for example, I can just do IMP, and here you can see a little context menu pops up or drop down shows up, and that first option is import entire module statement. And now if I just click on tab, it'll just automatically, fill that for me. So now I can, just quickly write, React and then tab over and just React, and that's that. I don't have to write the entire line over and over again, especially when you have larger files and maybe you'll have, a handful or, a couple dozen import statements. It makes your life a lot easier. Alrighty, so material icon theme. Now, this extension is just purely visual, doesn't actually do anything in terms of for writing code, but it just adds some nice icons to the different file types or directories that you have in your project. And so there's a whole list of icons available, but I'll just show you quickly what these look like. So this is just the project I have here. And so for the app directory, there's an icon that this extension has, and then for screens, and then home, and then you can see the little file icons for JavaScript and for Babel and for your package JSON and README, Webpack, and there's a whole bunch for different languages and different file types, and you can go through that. But that's pretty much what this extension does. So Prettier Code Formatter is just a code formatter for VS Code. So it's a really handy extension, especially when you have large files, or maybe you have some style guides or style guidelines, I guess, for your project, for your code that you need to adhere to. You can set up some prettier rules either in a file or in the actual config for your VS Code. And by running a simple command, it'll format your code for you. And so once you have that installed, let's just go to an example and see this in action. So let me just write some code, I guess, with maybe just some like real bad indentation, and maybe the child of this is here, and then another child, right? Okay, so obviously this is kind of garbage, right? There's a whole bunch of children that are nested, but they're on the same level. Um, And so by just running a simple command, so you can access this little menu by holding Command Shift P. And if you type format document, there's a little keyboard shortcut right there if you want to memorize that. And you just click on enter to run it. It formats my document for me, and it properly indents all of them. And this last B tag didn't have a child, so it just automatically closes that one tag. Um, and it changed all my single quotes to double quotes. Now you can also config Prettier code formatter to run on save, so that way you don't have to run a file and maybe you forget to run it, just automatically runs. And then there's a whole plethora of config options available for it that you can set up. Alrighty, so this is probably the most important one, at least to me, for the visual aspect of your IDE for VS Code, and that's Shades of Purple. That's a pretty popular and pretty cool theme that I have installed in my VS Code. And so once you have it installed, you can go to your theme right here, okay, color theme. And so VS Code ships with some of these default themes. And so maybe you'll have this default dark theme. That's what this one looks like. Now, if I want to enable Shades of Purple, you just install it, you go to Shades of Purple, and everything is purple. That's pretty much it. There's nothing fancy about it. Obviously, it's pretty popular. There's a million people that have it installed, but it just makes your IDE more pleasing to look at. The next extension is called Simple React Snippets. Now, it's pretty similar to the JavaScript Code Snippets extension as well, but this is just React specific, I guess. So at the very bottom, you can see the whole list of snippets available. Now, if you're a React developer, this would be really helpful. If you're not a React developer, don't worry about it. But just a quick example is, say you have React file, React component rather, that you're writing. You want to quickly write a class component. You just type CC, and here you'll see that a little drop down shows up. It says class component. I click on tab, and it automatically generates all of this code that you have to write over and over again, and it gets quite tedious if you have to repeat it, I guess. And that's pretty much it. Okay, all right. Well, this is the last extension that I have to show you guys, and if you're still watching the video, good job, I guess. So it's called Sort Lines. It's pretty simple, straightforward. It just sorts the lines that you have highlighted for you, either alphabetical or any other option that you have selected. So let me just highlight these real quick. Do Command Shift P again. I do sort lines, right? Let's type that, and it gives me all these options. I can do case insensitive, and now they're all sorted. And that's pretty much that. If you're kind of anal about the sorting of your lines and lines in your code, like your import statements, like I am, and you want them alphabetically sorted, then you can run this. Obviously, this is a need to have, but it's a nice to have, I guess. Okay, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching the video. Make sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you didn't like this video, if you want me to make a video about something else specifically, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.